comfortably while we listen to 3 sounds of the bell. So, good morning, dear teacher, dear community, and dear friends online. For those of us who are here, may I have a show of hand of how many of you have been here before, except the monastics, and how many of you are here for the first time? Thank you very much. Thank you for your presence this morning. Today is Sunday, July 18th, in the year 2021, and we gather here at the Great Togetherness Meditation Hall at Blue Cliff Monastery on the day of Mindfulness. And my name is Brother Pháp Khôi. I've been assigned to offer a talk today. But first, a bit of good news. Yesterday I contacted one of our teacher's attendants in the Root Temple to learn of his health, and he said that Thei's health is good. For those of you who might not be aware, that our teacher had a stroke back in 2014, and since then he's been resting and recuperating at the Root Temple in central Vietnam. About 2 weeks ago, we had an online retreat collaborated by all 3 monasteries in the U.S., Deer Park, Magnolia, and Blue Cliff. But we were the host for that retreat. There was a lot of work involved to organize an online retreat. We had help from the 3 technical teams of the 3 monasteries, and with their help and the technologies that were available, we were able to convene more than 400 participants, including the residents here. So it was a very joyous occasion. The retreat was organized for the members of the Order of Interbeing. That is unique to a Plum Village tradition. And we were happy to have a chance to gather that many people together on a platform. And this is for North America, so there were members from not only the US, but also Canada and Mexico. At the end of that retreat, we also welcomed 52 new members into the order, one of whom is a monastic sister from Blue Cliff, and the other 51 are from friends from all over the place. So it was quite a joyous occasion for us to do so. But then after that, we took a week off to rest, because it was quite endeavor to organize that retreat. And with the week off and rest, we're now back in full schedule. So today, my topic is a phrase that our teacher wrote as a calligraphy. And it is, be beautiful, be yourself. Thầy offered this to us as maybe a mantra or a koan to reflect upon. In Vietnamese, it's ta phải là ta thì ta mới đẹp, or mình phải là mình thì mình mới đẹp. So literally it means I have to be myself in order to be truly beautiful. And I will attempt to interpret that phrase as I understand it. And you are welcome to have your interpretation. We all want to be beautiful. We all want to be noticed, to be presentable. Maybe not all of the time, but sometimes, at certain times in our life. But moreover, we want to fit in, we want to belong, we want to be accepted, we want to be loved. And we accomplish this by adapting to standards. Could be social standards, cultural standards, the standards of our family. And since childhood, these standards were taught to us, often imposed upon us, or even expected of us. Many of us adapt naturally to these standards. We even thrive in them. But some, if not many, cannot. But because we have to fit in, because we want to feel safe, because we want to feel accepted, that we have to adapt to these standards. And that can be detrimental to our health. Because this way of existing causes us to have a lot of pain and suffering. We want to fit in, so for some of us we have to hide our true selves in order to survive. And some are able to survive, some are not. I'd like to tell you a story that I read recently that was written by our teacher back in the 60s. I found these stories in a collection of magazines that he helped to produce. They're called Giữ Thơm Quê Mẹ, or Keep Our Motherland Fragrant. I guess that's a translation. I believe this story is told in fragrant palm leaves, although I don't recall it in the English version, but this was written in the Vietnamese version. And so the story was about a poor young woman named Minh, M-I-N-H. She had a dream of living a life of luxury. I think we all do, especially when we're not well-to-do. So she has this dream. She wants to live with material comfort. And so she met a young businessman, a rich businessman. She married him not out of love, but because of luxury. And he can provide that luxury to her. On the other hand, he married her because she resembled his previous wife. She looked exactly like his previous wife, whose name was Nguyet, Nguyet. She was well aware of this. He was able to provide her with everything she needed, with only one condition, and that is she should train herself to be like Nguyet. He trained her to learn to eat the food that Nguyet ate, to wear the clothes that Nguyet wore, to act and to behave the way that Nguyet acted and behaved. So in the beginning, it was no problem for her. She could do that. But as time went on, she realized that she was not living her authentic self. She was living someone else's life. But she's used to the luxuriousness of her material life. She felt like she was not able to let go. She felt trapped. She's too used to that way of life already, even though she's not happy. But one day she found out a reason that could get her out of this. And she went and told her husband that, "Did you know that your late wife committed adultery?" She thought that with this news, he would release her of having to emulate with. He said, "I already knew that." He confessed with her that he got so angry at his late wife, and so he murdered her to dissipate his anger. But his anger was not dissipated. He wanted to find someone exactly like Nguyet to do it over again. Thầy didn't end the story. So we don't know what happened to Min, whether she survived, whether she got out or not. How many of us, at some point in our lives, if not our whole life, find ourselves in Min's shoes? If we were in her shoe, were we able to be strong enough? Are we able to be strong enough to get out of that relationship? And then how many of us find ourselves in the young businessman's shoes, imposing standards on others? We don't need to raise our hands. This is something for reflection. This scenario could apply to any other relationships, parental-child relationship, to a different degree. Could be among friends, could be between the individual and the society. Let us contemplate on that a little bit while we listen to the sound of the bell. So be beautiful, be yourself. Let's talk about the term beauty. I'll write it down on the board. In Buddhism, the term beauty goes along with two other terms. In Vietnamese, it's or Sino-Vietnamese rather. Usually it goes chân thiện mỹ, truth, good, beauty. In the Buddha's teaching is described as having these three qualities: truth, good, and beautiful. I like to read a section of a chant that we sometimes chanted. This is the part of praising the teaching of the Buddha. The teaching given by my noble teacher is the path I undertake. The teaching well proclaimed is the teaching that can be realized right here and right now. Is the teaching that is immediately useful and effective. Is the teaching inviting all to come and see directly. Is the teaching that is leading to the good, the true, the beautiful, extinguishing the fire of afflictions. It is a teaching for all sensible people to realize for themselves. This beauty is the beauty of character, of manners, and which manifested from inside. And when we practice Buddhism, it helps us to radiate this beauty through the practice of the Eightfold Path, part of which is the path of right thinking, right action, and right speech, among others. So when we think and when we speak, and when we act in a compassionate way, in a way that is showing understanding, non-violent, non-discrimination, we become beautiful. People are drawn to us. We radiate beauty, truth, and kindness. So I will write that point down. So to bring out beauty, we practice the Eightfold Path. As monastics, we learned and practice of what is called the fine manners. As monastics, looking good is quite challenging because we all shave our heads. And as far as fashion goes, we have many shades of brown. That's pretty much it. And so we adorn ourselves with fine manners. Not only in our dress code, modesty, but also in our conducts. So when we're able to do this, beauty radiates from within. A side note, the word beauty in Sino-Vietnamese, mi, many of our Vietnamese brothers and sisters know this, means, is a name for America. Right? We call America nước Mỹ, the country of beauty. We call Americans người Mỹ, the people of beauty, or beautiful people. White people we call người Mỹ trắng, beautiful white people. We call black Americans người Mỹ đen, beautiful black people. This is a literal translation. But America can realize its beauty if it's able to realize the other two parts, being true and being kind. And I know we have these qualities in our country. We know we have these qualities in our people. And they have manifested in various ways. Somehow, they don't seem to be so obvious in recent months. So let us reflect on that, and I know that we can do much better. When we radiate these three energies, as I said before, we are pleasant to be with, to be around, and we have a chance to share with others how to be beautiful, how to be true, and how to be kind. So America, the land of beauty. These qualities are in Buddhism, seeds in our stored consciousness that we can learn to water so that they can manifest. They can become a reality. And we can water these seeds individually and collectively. But the first step is to water them in the individual, in ourselves. And then maybe later on in our loved ones. And how to do so, how to water the seeds of truth, of kindness and beauty. As I shared before, we practice the Eight Noble Path. Another practice that we can apply into our daily life is the practice of the 5 mindfulness trainings. These trainings originally are called the 5 Precepts in Buddhism. Namely, the first one is reverence for life. The second is true happiness. And the third is true love. The fourth is loving speech and deep listening. And then the fifth is nourishment and healing. You can find these online to learn about them if you haven't already, and see if you can bring some elements into your own daily life so that you can be more beautiful, be more true, and be more kinder. So that part is about beauty. Let's talk a little bit about self. Self, yourself, myself, ourselves. So we often, again, define ourselves by other people's standards or the standard of our society. Self can be understood as a separate entity. We're separated from others. We're not connected to anyone. We're our own. The dictionary, I looked this up the other day. I did look it up the other day. Anyhow, the dictionary said that this self is a sense of who we are, separated from other people. And but in Buddhism, we learn that self is actually non-self. Many of us who study Buddhism knows this. Our teacher, one of his popular phrases is self is made up of non-self elements. And if you've listened to his Dharma talks, one of his favorite examples is a flower. A flower is made of non-flower elements. And so, non-self. We, as a culture, we identify ourselves in other people's eyes, expectation from others, and also our own expectations. We live by the standard of our culture or the place where we live. For many of us, it's okay. We are complacent with it. We even thrive in it. But then there are those of us who might feel confined or rigid, living in that kind of standards. And think about class or gender roles, or even in religious settings. Class, for example, we either in the upper class, the middle class, or working class, and we somehow behave respectively in that class. Gender, men, women, expectations, masculinity, femininity, etc. Religious roles. We can be a lay practitioner, or a novice, or an abbot, or a Dharma teacher. We have all the roles to play. Family roles, we can be a mother, a father, or a child. Let me write the suggestion of the teaching of the Buddha is when we consider the self, should consider it as a non-self. Teaching of the Buddha offers us a different way of identifying this self. And perhaps if we're able to study and apply the teaching, we might be able to discover our truer self. We might never get there, but we might discover our truer self. more authentic self. Here's the Oxford Dictionary definition of self. A person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. Yourself is your sense of who you are deep down, your identity. And in Old English, self is one's own person. So let's learn about what are the non-self elements, what are the non-you elements that Buddhism suggests to us. I sort of jot down a few. I'm sure you can come up with more. So these are the non-us elements that make up who we are. Sometimes Buddhism describes the individual person as made up of two parts, the body and the mind. Sometimes 5 parts, the 5 aggregates. I like to group them in kind of 3 parts. So the body non-you elements are, for example, your physiological elements that made up who you are, your cells, your organs, the food that you eat, the air that you breathe, the water that you drink. These are the non-you physiological elements. And then you have biological elements. You could be an LGBTQIA plus person or a non-LGBTQIA plus person. How about racial elements? You are from a certain race or even mixed races. So this is just the physical part that made up who you are. And then what about the mind? There are psychological and mental elements, non-you elements that make up who you are. Things such as your emotions, your intellect, your personality, your motivation, your volition, etc., etc. And then another part is called the environment. This is not the natural world that we usually use this term for. What I mean here is the man-made world, society, culture. These elements also integrated into you. Cultural elements such as gender roles, as I shared earlier, relationship roles, social elements such as class, wealth, poverty, your status, your positions. And then the familial elements as also shared, father, mother, your relationship to your relatives. So all of these non-you elements make up who you are at any moment, and they change. They are organic, and hence you also change, and you are organic. You are not any one of these elements by themselves. You are not outside of them. And yet, you are more than all of them combined. Knowing them might help you to touch your truer self, might help you to understand yourself better. But they can also become a trap, a prison that you might not escape from if you're not careful, if you don't take them with a grain of salt. For some of us, that is sufficient. We can live our lives and thrive in them. We can be happy and at peace. But then again, for other of us, they might not be sufficient. Somehow we know we are more than all of them, but we might be at odds with them. And hence we feel disharmony within our person. We feel disharmony among the non-us elements. We suffer. We know that because of them we are part of the collective, but also we are individual. We're neither, but yet we're both. But to pick and choose leads us to a lot of suffering and pain. Think of a kaleidoscope. I enjoy this analogy. The kaleidoscope is made of various colorful parts. So every time you shake them, you look, it's a different image, a different form. And then you shake them again, and then there's a new form. But yet, all the different forms are made up of the same fragments. So these fragments are like your non-self elements. And we all share these non-self elements. But when they come together, they make a unique you. And so it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we're separate, we're special, we're alone. But we're actually not. We're all connected. And that's what the teaching of the Buddha points us towards, that our self is actually non-self. So there is a way out of our suffering and difficulties and pain. And it's inward. Our teacher used the phrase, the way out is in. Coming back to ourselves. By way of the practice of mindfulness, mindful breathing, mindful walking, using our breath as an anchor to bring us back to the present moment, to bring to light the truth of interconnectedness, so that we no longer feel disconnected. So let us enjoy another sound of the bell. So I took liberty to jot down a couple of suggestions for us to reflect, to learn about our truer selves. So the first step is to acknowledge, to accept, to embrace, and to love ourselves as we are, just the way we are. I'll write that down on the board. we want to start with just accepting the way that we are, our situation, our circumstance. And then we have, it's kind of echoey, and then we'll know what to do about them. But the first step again is to acceptance. The second step is when we acknowledge and accept ourselves, we begin to see what difficulties we're facing. We begin to learn to embrace and accept our difficulties, acknowledge them, our pain, our suffering. Then we have a chance to actually see the sources of these difficulties, pain and suffering, their roots, where they came from, how they came about, the conditions that brought about our difficulties, our pain and suffering. And in many cases, it could be a conflict between the various non-us elements, be it mind, body, or the environment. When we see these sources, then we have a chance of knowing what to do about them. We can decide to continue feeding them, hence feeding our difficulties, our pains, our suffering, or we can decide to discontinue feeding them, hence being able to transform our difficulties, our pain, our suffering. So to identify the roots. It is understood that once we identify them, then we should come to a decision whether to continue feeding them or to transform them, to change them. And then the third step can actually be the second step, and that is to water the seeds of joy. Watering seed is a Plum Village technical term. It just means that we cultivate the potential for happiness and for joy in our lives. Do the things that nourish us wholesomely, our mind and body. Joy, ... happiness, tranquility, peace, etc. Gratitude. What are the seeds of gratitude? Gratitude naturally brings us joy and happiness. So when we're able to water these seeds in us, we establish or re-establish balance in our lives. I guess a scientific term would be like homeostasis. Some of you may know this. It's a scientific term to describe the state of bodily balance when all the processes and internal organs are working harmoniously together. And we can help with that by practicing mindfulness. When the body is tired, we know how to rest, when to rest, how to de-stress so that we can get a physical rest and hence the mind is affected. It can also get the rest that it needs. Just a side note, mindfulness can have a side effect. That is, nothing gets done because we might be too slow. But rest assured, it might just be the beginning, and I'm sure many of us have experiencing this in our own practicing life. I remember when I was an aspirant in the upper hamlet of Plum Village. At some point, I was helping with the brothers' cooking team, in a cooking team. And one day, my assignment was to wash lettuce. And so I did. And as an aspirant, you do everything you're told, 120%. So I washed each leaf attentively 3 times. I was so proud of my sustained energy of mindfulness. I enjoyed washing the lettuce so much at the sink. But at one point, a monk who was cooking nearby called out to me, "Minh Tiến," that was my lay Dharma name. "Are you still washing the lettuce? You know that it's been more than an hour?" We do get better with the practice of mindfulness. We will know, we will discern when to be slow and mindful, and when to be fast and still mindful. I really enjoy that experience that I did. I'm sure the monks didn't, but that experience taught me a lesson that mindfulness doesn't have to always be slow. Slowness help us to be more mindful in the beginning, but if we practice continuously, regularly, diligently, we can still maintain our mindfulness even in situations where we find we have to hurry. But the default is slow. So that's why when you come to the monastery, we encourage you to slow down. And sometimes you might see like contradictory. How come that monk told me to slow down, but I saw another monk was doing something very, very fast, very quick? That's the difference. So I hope you understand that. Mindfulness doesn't have to be slow, but slowness helps to increase the energy of mindfulness. So when we understand, have a better understanding of what it means to be beautiful and what it means to be yourself, again, when we understand self as non-self, we truly understand ourselves again. Before we practice mindfulness, we think of self as something outside of us, as separate, disconnected. When we begin to learn the practice, we understand it to be comprised of non-self elements, all connected, all interrelated. Once the practice is part of our life, we can use the term self again. We can realize ourself again. But this self is no longer that self. This self has in it everything. This self is nothing but everything. This self is interbeing. Then harmony is established among all the non-self elements. We are more beautiful, we are more true, we are more kind, we are kinder. So to recap, being beautiful, be beautiful, be yourself, to me means to get in touch with our inner self, to be true to that, and to be at peace with it, and to live that truth, so that we can radiate kindness and beauty. Be beautiful, be yourself is to understand and embrace and celebrate the interbeing that is inherent in us, being interconnected between ourselves, others, and also our environment, whether man-made or the natural environment. And then the third point is being beautiful, be yourself, is to learn to accept, to encourage, and to celebrate these qualities in other people. Their truth, their beauty, their kindness. And when we are asked or invited, we can show them how to do it. Yes, we still need to stand up to injustice, to discrimination, to fear, to anger, to hatred. But to truly transform our society, to make it a more compassionate one, a more just one, the journey begins with each one of us. We must start at the root. We must start at the base. The base is where our potentials lie. These seeds are also termed potentials, which we all have. And they are in each one of us. The base is where these seeds are, and we can transform them. So water these seeds of beauty, truth, and kindness. And we can do this individually and collectively as a community. So thank you for listening. We enjoy 3 sounds of the bell.